All right. Where did I go? Okay, we're going to start with sub-element 1, which all the other courses start there. We started in the middle. And talk about frequency privileges and forwarding, operation on ships and aircraft, and the weird stuff about the 630 and 2200 meter bands. I guess the most important thing on this chart is, and there's questions about this, to ensure that you stay within the band limits. So there'll be a question on getting close to the upper end or the lower end, depending on what your bandwidth is. Really easy questions, but you do have to know the upper and lower ends of the bands. For most of these questions in this sub-element 1, they're all from the Part 97 FCC rules or regulations, whichever they are. And I tried to show the applicable ones for each one of these areas. They're actually not as legalese as I thought the first time I went through it, but they are very wordy.
Also, Bob, when you take the test, we obviously know what the right answer is. When you test, are the wrong answers also from the pool on the test, or could you have different wrong answers?
No, the wrong answers are in the question pool.
Okay.
And the ones that I'm showing are the correct wrong answers.
Okay.
Now, I don't know that they're in the same order on the exam. They may rearrange the order of the answers. I'm not really sure.
Some of them are easy and some of them are just a word or two. You got to look at it very, very carefully.
There's a couple of them where one word makes the difference.
Yeah, that's right.
In fact, we had that one last week. Emissions versus what was
I remember seeing that one too.
But the emissions was the correct one.
There's another where you had the different bands, and one of them missing, like 80, 40, you know what I mean? And it was one of them just missing, just one, like I said, one word made a difference.
Right. You have to read them carefully. And this one kind of talks about spread spectrum, where it's limited to some specific bands.
Right.
And I believe we have a question on that. So, the emission standards, and I just picked out the ones that apply to the exam on 20 meters, which the sub band is 14 to 14.15, and you can do RIDI and data. 14.15 to 14.35, you can do phone and image. And on 17 meters, the bottom end is 18.068 to 18.110 for RIDI and data. And then above that, from 110 to 168 is phone and image.
This image means like CCTV,
slow scan, yeah. And CW, to my knowledge, is available anywhere. And data would refer to things like FT8, FT4, JS8 call, all those digital modes. So let's see if you remember it for 10 seconds. Which of the following carrier frequencies is illegal for lower sideband audio frequency shift keying emissions on the 17-meter band RTTY and data segment of 18068 to 18110? Jesse?
Yes, I'm gonna,
The reason why is outside the band.
Yeah, it's lower sideband.
Lower sideband is gonna put you out at the low end of 17 meters.
Yeah.
All right, everybody got alpha? Because that's the data and RTTY segment. And it said audio frequency shift keying emissions, which is basically data modes. What's the maximum legal carrier frequency on the 20-meter band for transmitting upper sideband audio frequency shift keying digital signals having a 1 kilohertz bandwidth?
That sounds like
so that's 7.15 minus 1 kilohertz. I think something like that. 7.150 minus 1 kilohertz.
so 20 meters.
Yeah, it's on 20 meters.
I meant to say 14. 14.
Okay. So, any alphas? Bravos? Charlies? Right. Because it's one, and I don't know what 1 kilohertz would be. FT8's only 50.
Yeah.
And I don't think RTTY's that. Well, I don't know what 1 kilohertz is, but it's just made up, I guess.
Yeah. Well, isn't that kind of? It seems like, or isn't the high end of where that's allowed 150? I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 14.150.
So it's
So 1
gonna-
kilohertz is gonna put it on.
It's gonna put it down.
Yeah, if you know where that band, you know, the high end of that band.
That's why it's 149.
Right.
Because it's 1 kilohertz wide, so your carrier's 149, and the sideband is going to go up to 150, and you're still legal as long as you don't go more than a kilohertz.
So they're not making it wrong because it'll be out of the band. They're making it wrong because it's.
No, they're making it right. What's the legal
Right.
frequency?
Maximum legal.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Got to read them carefully.
But I wouldn't transmit that close because the slightest little.
Well, no, they don't recommend it because you don't know how accurate your VFO is,
And I actually now know that there's an adjustment
and it can drift.
and it can be accessed through the front panel.
Yeah.
On the G90. Yeah, I've seen people outside band carriers 3 kilohertz below the top end of the band or whatever, but they're basically overmodulating or whatever. So their signal is like you try to limit it to 3 kilohertz, but it's 2800, whatever, 2 kilohertz. But they're splattering all over the place. So they're splattering and they're out of the band, so they're kind of violating two things.
Yeah, this is just talking about the same kind of thing. If you're doing phone, you want to be at least 3 kilohertz above the lower end of the band, whatever band it is, and obviously 3 kilohertz below the top end. And their example is you got a station calling CQ on 3.601 lower sideband. And they're saying it's illegal to return that call because you're out of the band. So this is one of those split band operations, right?
That's what I was looking at. I mean, they're not calling on illegal. 3 points.
He's not necessarily US.
Okay, good point.
He's in a different region.
Or a different region, you know,
But if he was in the US,
in region 2, which would
And it
be the
would apply
US,
to him, too.
then,
flood in too.
yeah,
Cool.
but maybe it's Mexico. I don't know what the other
But
bands are in the other countries.
it's not necessarily doing split. Split, 3.601 is 1 kilohertz inside the phone band, right? So it needs to be at least 3 kilohertz
Yeah.
inside the bottom of the phone band. So he's,
Yeah, you'd have to have a 603 in order to be.
because he's doing LSB or
Right.
sideband. So this needs to be 3.60304 to be correct.
Yes.
It's not necessarily split.
Well, you could listen to him on 3601
You could,
And
and
respond to him
transmit
higher.
on a legal one
Yeah.
for you. Okay. You got a transceiver displaying the carrier frequency of phone signals. Which of the following displayed frequencies represents the lowest frequency at which a properly adjusted LSB emission will be totally within the band? You gotta read that one twice.
3 kilohertz.
Yes.
Okay, you've got oh, DX station calling 3601 lower sideband. Is it legal to return the call using lower sideband on the same frequency?
This will be complicated.
All right.
Bob, are you gonna put up the book also?
The what?
You know, when you're going through the questions, you normally have on Zoom, you have the pages of the book up with the questions.
Oh, aren't you seeing it?
I am not. I'm just seeing you.
Oh, you should have said something.
I wasn't too sure whether we was going or not. Then I said, "Well, we're really going," and I'm not seeing the
Because I
Look.
forgot to share it.
Now we're gonna see him too.
Now we see him.
what do you say?
You just came up on the screen, I was pulling your chain.
Okay. All right. You see it now?
I do.
All right. Sorry about that. I'll use the excuse I'm old.
Works for me.
How about now?
I do.
All right.
Well,
That might explain why you were having some trouble with the questions. Okay. So if you're doing slow scan TV, you've got to make sure that you stay within the phone/image segment of the band. It's the same kind of issue with upper sideband and lower sideband.
So what is the width of the SSTV?
I think it's 6.
Makes sense.
I should know that because there's a question.
Is it?
Oh, there was a question. I think there's one coming up later. What special operating frequency restrictions are imposed on slow scan TV transmissions? Okay, and we have the odd 60-meter band. Aren't they trying to take that away or do something with it?
they're trying to realign it.
Maybe they should. Does anybody use it?
I have not spoken to
You can
anybody.
use it twice.
I know, but there is.
Like, I think you 2 contacts.
Um,
Has 7.
say what?
Europe has 70.
Oh. For people that don't know, the 60-meter band is arranged in channels. There's what, 5 channels of, what are they? 5 or 6 kilohertz?
5.7, 5.45, and some other increment of that.
And for some reason, which I didn't understand, they require you to have, if you're doing CW, you've got to be in the center of the band, implying that if you're doing some other emission, you don't have to be in the center. I'm not sure I understand why you got to do CW, since it's so narrow, why it needs to be in the middle.
I think everything's gotta be below the channel.
And they also limit the power to 100 watts PEP. Relative to a dipole. And I guess all this stuff's because we're not the primary user. So who is the primary?
That.
Government radio stations.
Ah,
So yeah, like usual, less than the same as on the frequency.
okay, so now we got the newer 630 and 2200 meter. Anybody been there? It takes kind of a long wire, doesn't it?
Or good tuner.
And you can have 1 watt on 630 and 5 on 2200. And the one thing in the FCC regulations, you can have 1.5 kilowatts PEP, but you can only have 1 watt effective isotropic radiated power. Well, they only care about your output.
Yeah.
They'll let you have 1,500 watts in,
So what?
but you're going to heat up something.
Well,
And then, of course, there's the Alaska exception. Because we don't want to mess up with Russia. And I put the 164 conversion factor to convert it from effective isotropic radiated power back to ERP, or effective radiated power. And this is the only place where the EIRP shows up, I'm aware.
What is the, you gotta reduce yourself. You're covering up part of my words.
I can't make me smaller.
Minimum.
1 watt.
Oh, there we go. All right. So what must the carrier frequency of a CW signal be to comply with FCC rules for 60-meter operation? At the center. Now, I've never seen where they specify for other than CW. I mean, you might be right, you have to do all of them, but I haven't seen where it said you do for anything other than CW, which I didn't understand why.
so our data modes other than CW allowed on 60 meters.
Yeah,
I don't think so,
what modes are authorized on?
because I know,
Because if they were,
I know on FT8, 60 meters is not one of the selectable
Is
frequencies.
phone allowed on?
It says,
Yeah.
60 meters, phone, radio, and data.
Because I know in the FT8 contest, they don't allow 60. And it's not one of the choices on WSJTX to select frequencies unless you add it, but it's not there by default.
mine's a CW upper side band phone, lower. Radio and data, so So it's interesting that they would
So to
say,
be upper, you'd have to be on the low side
Oh,
of
yeah.
that channel.
well, it's a six.
So that's why it's not in the
That's
middle.
how wide channel. I mean,
Yeah,
It's a 6 kilohertz channel and
I think the,
morning.
to get the channel.
Yeah,
I think the frequency, the band chart, actually, I think there's a little cheat on there that actually says the frequency has a V for everything.
Okay,
yeah, you'd have to put your upper sideband signal on the low end of that channel. Otherwise you'd be out.
yeah, because it's only what, 5.5 kilohertz or something like that wide. So you couldn't,
I'm
Yeah, that's.
yeah, it's not wide enough to do it in this, to have the carrier in the middle. Okay, so what's the maximum power output permitted on the 60-meter band?
Oh, 100 watts. See,
Delta. I think it's Charlie.
no, delta. It's appropriate, right?
I believe so. I thought it said halfway typo. That's what
Yeah.
I'm on that one.
No, actually, it says relative to dipole. So it is C.
It was C.
See, I shouldn't second guess myself.
Yeah, don't do that on the test. Unless you're really sure, don't change an answer.
I sent the email yesterday, so I got a seat in the test and subtree.
Okay.
And afterwards, I got to see the exact sort of celebratory lunch.
Well, we always go to Sarno Pizza after the
Oh, really?
exam, yeah,
Well,
because that's the normal PCARS Saturday lunch,
yeah.
and we usually finish before noon, unless there's an awful lot of people and everybody's taking the extra test, or a bunch of people taking all three, which has happened a few times. Okay. What's the maximum power permitted on the 2200-meter band?
5 watts.
Yeah.
5 watts EIRP.
Oh, it's 1 watt.
Oh,
I thought it was 630 and 220 is 1 and 5. Back up,
something.
back up,
yeah,
back up.
you probably caught me.
Keep backing up,
I probably have a typo.
keep backing.
No, that was the question said for Alaska.
Keep going. Well, okay, okay.
For Alaska. Back to the
Maximum
question again.
gain.
That's an exception. So you're watching it on the text.
Okay,
No.
so you said in Alaska,
Trying to trick.
That's what the question was, the Alaska exception. And so it is 5 watts normally. It's 1 watt. Oh, it's 1.
yeah, but look right here, look at here. So except in Alaska, stations located within 800 kilometers of Russia may not transmit with a radiated power exceeding 1 watt EIRP. So it dropped it down from 5 to here for Russia, upper Alaska.
Yeah, so if you go back to the question, it specifically said Alaska in the question.
And I didn't even catch
So
that.
I didn't.
Oh, my.
So the question is this statement right, or did I get them swapped? Who's got a band chart?
No,
Got it up right here.
Go
The
to the
The
question.
band chart says 5 watts for 630.
I swapped them,
Within 496 miles of Russia, the power limit is 1 watt,
right?
which is 20 for 630.
What is
For
that?
220, yeah, see, 220 says 1 watt.
Okay.
RP.
I got them backwards here.
Yeah, the top you got them backwards, but the question you were on, like, just happened to be Alaska.
Yeah, the question and answer's right. I just had it wrong here.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. I guess I actually made a mistake. I thought I did once, but
I was wrong.
I was wrong.
Keep going.
Okay, so 2200 was 1 watt. And
Some parts of Alaska.
Alaska is
630 is 1 watt.
1 watt,
5 watts.
right?
Oh, what?
5 watts.
Well, how did that happen? What's going on?
Except that's 1 watt.
Except in some parts of Alaska.
Oh, not in Alaska.
Yeah,
Outside of
in other
Alaska.
words, not in.
It's another one of those you have to read the question.
So the next one, I'm really trying to. Is it on, but it wasn't.
Yeah, they throw tricky questions in there.
And then in the Navy, we called that RTFT.
Yeah. All right. WinLink. We have any WinLink users? Huh?
Snail mail, Winlink. No, it's the same, different snail mail, it's not ham.
Yeah,
Winlink is ham.
same kind of a deal.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did it a couple times, but I like the VAR AC better, and it does all the same stuff. And basically, it allows you to forward messages. So it's like a mailbox, and you send messages in there, and somebody can go retrieve them.
that's Winlink free,
Is what?
Winlink free.
Yes.
Free?
Yeah, the
Yes.
register, snail mail's a charge for the
Yeah.
service.
Yeah, as far as I know, you just have to sign up for it. Where
Winlink address, and so you have to register.
Where with the-
Winlink.org or whatever to be able to
with the
use it.
VAR AC and using the VAR modem software, there's a free version that's speed limited, and it's like $69 to open it up, but it's a one-time deal.
Ah.
So if a station in a message forwarding system inadvertently forwards a message that is in violation of FCC rules, who is primarily accountable for the rules violation? That's kind of a standard answer for. Who's going to go for Alpha? Baker, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. You missed it.
Yep.
They always get back to the control operator, which is may or may
Well,
not
what's
be
the
the
control operator?
licensee
Yeah.
of the originating station.
Originating.
The repeater operator, not a whole lot he can do about it. It's be after the fact.
Fact checking every message.
I understand.
That'd be as bad as Facebook.
Yeah.
Have a fact checker.
Okay. First action you should take if your digital message forwarding station inadvertently forwards communication that violates FCC rules is to discontinue as soon as you become aware. And I don't think they go on and talk about reporting it anywhere other than the fact that you're supposed to stop as soon as you are aware of it, if it's a continuing thing. So, oh, there's another typo. What action should you take if your message forwarding station inadvertently forwards communication that violates FCC rules?
Discontinue.
Yeah.
You don't have to notify the field office.
Although if this was a government something, then there's 15 different groups you have to let.
Yeah, you have to notify SOP. I learned it because I just took that part of the test. Now I guess the other question, I'm not sure they ever explicitly define what is violations of the rules. I think profanity is, apparently political stuff isn't, and some third-party stuff is an issue. Or if you're unlicensed. So, okay, operating aboard a plane or a ship, you have to be an FCC licensed operator if it's a U.S. registered vessel in international water. Or I guess international airspace, right? If it's an airplane. And you have to get approval from the pilot or the master of the ship. So how's that apply to a cruise ship? Same thing?
Yep.
Of course, cruise ships aren't necessarily
US registered.
registered in the US.
Also not.
Because I remember there is something about cruise ships somewhere in those rules. I don't know that you can do it. That's the FCC regulation. As long as you don't interfere. Which means you're probably not going to be able to do it on an airplane, right? Fire up your transmitter.
We've never had any problem as long as it's not over 10 watts.
Okay.
We do have our repeaters that we fly with on 800 megahertz, and the 140 band are 35 watts,
Okay.
but they definitely have their own antenna separated from everything else.
Okay. Which of the following describes authorization or licensing required when operating an amateur station aboard a U.S. registered vessel in international waters? Now you got to be careful about this one, because there's another question coming up where you would think that's the right answer and it's not. It's a little bit of a trick, and I'm actually wondering, I guess this is true. The trick is there's still novice licenses that are active. And novices are not allowed to do some things. So you can't always assume it's any licensed amateur.
And we're still required to have a radio telephone operator license to use aircraft bands out of the United States.
Okay, so if an amateur station is installed aboard a ship or aircraft, what condition must be met before the station is operated? Yep, that's the only one that talks about the master of the ship.
Right.
Okay, so you need a control operator at all times. They have to be FCC licensed or have some alien reciprocal agreement. I guess that would be like for Canadians who have all the privileges of US licensees, not to exceed the extra. As I understand it. And they're defining what the station is, 50 kilometers from the Earth's surface, so it can be a satellite, I guess, or a balloon.
Space station.
Space station. Well, they define that as a space station.
Yeah.
Which confused me at first because they'd say space station, and I'm thinking of the space station.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily the same thing.
But didn't that say 50?
50 kilometers.
So the space station's higher than 50.
Yeah.
And some of the satellites are. The geosynchronous one definitely is.
Even the low Earth orbit are higher than 50.
Yeah. So in other words,
Okay.
the shuttle, while it was in orbit.
Okay. Good point. So who must be in physical control of the station apparatus of an amateur station aboard a vessel or craft that is documented or registered in the United States. Yeah. Aliens
Or-
can do it. Okay. Those were easy.